Merry Christmas, everybody. Boyd here with you again, and I'm back with another update on our Enterprise refit build. Apologize for the lack of updates here in the last couple weeks, guys. Got more busy around the holidays than I anticipated. Hope you guys are warmer where you're at. It's really cold down here in Texas for the last couple days. I've got the heaters cranking in the shop to put out a video today, but we're going to get you caught up with what we've been working on. I just mainly been doing some detail painting here around the BC deck and the bridge. I got the impulse crystal installed. I used the HDA ModelWorks masking set for the masking of the impulse crystal so I could paint it, and that turned out really good. And then the bridge, we're just using a bunch of thin vinyl, stretchable type masking tape to mask all these little fine lines and everything. This bridge is actually a pretty complex paint job in of itself, but really happy with how that turned out. We used a little bit of the iridescence on this too, just like they had on the original refit. Got a little bit of the blue and some of the gold on there, so it looks really sharp. But what we're going to be doing for you guys today is we're going to be going back to the inside of the saucer, and we're going to be finishing up with the rest of the lighting on the upper part here. We're also going to be working on the bridge floodlight, which is a reason that I wanted to get the bridge all done and get this blue area painted and everything. We're going to be gluing down a LED right in this area right here to get our floodlight effect out the front, and then we're going to be able to set the bridge on top of that. I've also got to drill another hole here to bring another 5mm LED right up in the center of this. That kind of lights up our side windows and all that. And then we'll have a strobe light here at the back on the top of the bridge. We've also got this little airlock here and these two little windows in the back of the bridge deck here. I've worked out a really neat little system for getting that little kind of wedge lighting that you see around the edges of the airlock that I'll show you how I did a little bit later here, you guys. It's a pretty neat little trick. We're going to do that on the entire hull wherever we have an airlock door to get that little extra lighting effect there. But she's looking really good, you guys. The paint job's coming around. I'm just kind of touching it up here and there and buffing it all out, getting it really nice and smooth. I'm using some fine polishing compound that doesn't, it's not very aggressive at all. Just working my way around and getting it smoothed out and getting it ready for the Aztecs. Once we get the bottom saucer put on, we'll finish up that little seam work there, and then we'll be able to start painting this entire thing. So we're getting pretty close to the really fun and exciting stuff. Over here, you guys, I've been working on, this is the little 3D printed rec deck that we got from HobbyWorks that you guys remember I showed you this before I put it together. So I've got it all put together and painted up. Now, one thing that I found is that this actually, if you go over to their website and look at hobbyworks.com, you'll see some 3D rendered pictures of this, the way it looks put together. And he has a roof on top of this, and unfortunately when you have it set up like that, it's a little bit too thick to fit inside the saucer here. I basically laid it in there and tried to put the bottom and top half pieces together, and I wound up with a pretty big gap right where the rec deck was, so they're hitting. So what I had to do is I had to shave that all down. You can see I shaved the top part off of this kind of double-decker gallery area right here, and shaved it down to the very top of these support pillars, and then did the same thing with the rest of it, just kind of matched it all up, and now it fits in there perfectly, and it lines up inside the window where it should too, like where this is at the right level. So it won't have any kind of a roof on it. I'm just going to have some LEDs above here. We're going to take some clear acetate, glue that over the top of the LEDs, and just spray some white over the top of that, just diffuse it a little bit, and then glue this on top of that. And when I set it up and tested it that way, it looked really nice when you looked in the windows and everything. So what I wanted to show you on this is what I talked about, is that you can see I've done some nice little paint work here. I've got some of the different colors that you saw, but this is really accurate to what you see on the screen. I'm really liking this. The shapes of the walls, the two pillars that you have there, the view screen in the middle. So I painted this in some similar colors to what we saw, the different tans and off-whites and stuff like that, this kind of crimson color that they had on the carpet and on the furniture in the middle of the room. A nice little feature that this has that I talked about was it has these insertable sort of semi-transparent white pieces, and what those are for is so that you can do backlighting. So what I've done is I've glued a couple of 0805 SMDs on the back here, 3 of them, and so we light the view screen and we light these 2 little columns, just like you saw on the film, and that looks really, really good. Once you get your overhead lighting in here, the whole thing is nice and illuminated, but you still get that nice little backlighting effect. So that's a really nice little detail, and and Russ over there did a great job at HobbyWorks working on all these, so I really like these. Then over here, we've got our Officer's Lounge. This is a little kit that's available from HDA Model Works. It comes with these little tree, vegetation things that you can put in there for a little bit extra detail. So I just did a little bit of painting in there and put in, the water effects with some of my solar res. I put a couple of 1/350 scale figures in there. You can see just kind of populate it a little bit. And I'm using this screen grab here as a reference. You can see on the back wall there was some sort of foliage or whatever vegetation on the wall there, like some vines or something. So I kind of painted that on the back wall here that you can see. And I chose to use some kind of laid back neutral colors on this because I didn't want it to be too bright or look too busy, at this small of a scale. Once it's lighted and put in, and when we look in the little window on the back here of our BC deck, and I did all my testing with my lighting and everything, and I really like how it looks. It looks just right when you look at it through the glass. So that's going to come out really good. We've got our Impulse crystal painted here. We used the masking set from HDA Model Works for that. I was thinking that we had a photo etch cover for that, but I'm thinking back that it was now on one of the paragraphic set from one of the smaller kits, like the 1537 Reliant or something like that. But we had to go ahead and paint this one, so that's the kit supplied part. But now we can use a little kit that we got from HobbyWorks also to do our LED install there. He gave us this nice little kit for a disc that fits in there with our LED that can go up with a little diffuser, and then it'll all be light blocked from the inside. All we have to do is put a little light coat of black over it from behind, and we don't have to worry about all that stuff we had to do before, separating the impulse engine and the impulse crystal and all that. But we're going to flip the saucer over here in just a second and get busy working on all that. So let me get everything set up here on the bench, guys, and we'll finish up doing some lighting here, and we'll be moving right along on the old saucer. Be right back. Okay guys, well I'm getting ready to install our little impulse crystal kit here, and you can see what we have is we have this little printed gray disc here, which has a nice socket to perfectly fit a 5mm LED, which we're going to be using a bicolor LED here for our color changing in our impulse crystal from amber to blue. And then we've got this neat little kind of diffuser part on the top of this. It's a little dome, it's got some little detail on it, and you're supposed to glue that right in the center of this thing, which is a really neat little extra piece, which will help to keep our LED from looking too sourcey inside of the dome. So it should look really good. Now, I used regular CA glue to glue these two parts together because they're resin, but you don't want to really be doing CA glue on your clear part here. This clear plastic that comes with your model kit, don't ever use CA glue on that, guys. It'll cause it to crack and do all kinds of weird things. It does not like that at all, so we're going to have to use regular model glue for that. And I've got some of my Model Master liquid glue here. We're just going to go ahead and put a little bead right on the top of the little ledge right here. Okay. And then we're going to turn our part over. We want to make sure this is facing upward. And then just put it right down on top. It sits in there really good. And we'll let that dry, and that'll be all set up. So later on we can just drop our little LED in there. Once we get the LED installed and wired, just come in here with some black paint and paint over that whole entire thing, the disc and a little bit around that, paint on the back side of the LED, and you'll have a perfectly light block set up there, and it's completely separated from the impulse engines. So we'll be good to go. That'll work out really, really good. Now what we're going to do next, guys, is we're going to install the little rec deck here. So I'm going to have to get the camera turned around here. I'm going to have to find a little piece of clear acetate that we can paint for our lens. You can see I've laid down the LEDs right here. This will basically flip over and go in here something like this with our little clear piece over the top of that to give us a little bit of diffusion. Then we've got to tie this wiring in to our main harness here so that the lights that come in for the background, they always come on whenever we power the model up. So I'll be right back, get the solder iron warmed up, and we'll get everything going. Alright you guys, well I'm back again, and I've got my rec deck all set up and ready to go in here. Now, what I was doing with this is, for the lighting, I wanted to have the overhead lights here, which is this little three bulb strip of LED tape. I wanted to have that a little bit dimmer than the rest of this LED tape here. The reason why is that we're just lighting all these big window groups here, but this one here we're actually going to be able to see into this room, and so if the light's too bright, we're going to have a real big, you know, washed out effect going on in there, and it's going to wash out all the lighting of our backlighting here, or this really nice detail that we put in on this back wall. So I've just got a whole bunch of these resistors here. You can break these down and look at all the little stripes on them and figure out exactly what they are, but what I do is I just take one at a time and I just keep touching it on. I've got the hot wire here, the plus wire coming off this little harness that we made, you know, the little power ring that we made. So I just kept touching the power for this little LED strip on here and trying a different resistor until it dimmed down to the amount that I wanted it to. And then I just went with that. So now we're ready to set this up. So I just stuck this resistor in line in between where the wires come from our SMDs here, back, and then to the little power loop that we've got here. So real easy setup to do that. And we've got this all dimmed down. I left the SMDs that we've got attached onto the back here to light the back wall going straight to power with the resistors that they came with, so that they're going to be plenty bright. That way it'll all mix together and it'll look really good. So I've got that all figured out, and I tested it, so we're ready to glue this in place. So this time we're going to be using some CA glue, and we're going to glue it right down on top of this little pad that we've got right here. I put a couple little plastic shims, you can see, out of sheet styrene to get my height exactly the way I wanted it for my, you know, floor that we've got in here. So we just flip this over now. Now, one decision you're going to have to make before you put this in, you guys, is whether to leave this outer part right here. It's going to cut down quite a bit on the visibility that you can see inside and see into the room. You can kind of look through the bars and see the detail in there, but if you take it out completely, you'll be able to see it all, like wide open. But if you look at the screenshot pictures of this up close, you can see that through the glass you should be able to see these little beams that are in place right here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave these in, and just so from far away you'll see that little effect there, and if you really want to get close, you can look at it. And I'm just setting it down in there like that. Now what I want to do is I want to turn on my power here, and I'm going to look from the outside and make sure these beams actually are spaced properly, so they line up with your they basically line up with your window group there. So you just want to make sure it's sitting there square and we're all the way up against the saucer like we should be. Everything's equal on both sides. Yeah, and I mean, I can look in there and I can still see quite a bit of the detail in the background, so I'm happy with that, and we still retain that little shape that's there. Just putting a little bit more glue. We have those nice pillars that are supposed to be in front of the windows like that. I've never done this before on any of the other builds I've done. This is a nice little extra detail to put in. I'm just going to spray a little kicker on this real quick and get it set up. And that worked out real nice. Oh, when I flip the saucer over here in a minute, we'll take the camera and we'll kind of put it over there for you to give you a look to see how that looks. Okay, you guys, well, I wanted to give you a shot of the officer's lounge here real quick. It doesn't have the glass in it yet, but that's how it's going to look when it's all lit up. You can see all the nice little detail. You can see we've got it diffused in there. We dimmed down the lighting just a little bit with that, so it's not blindingly bright when you look in there. And then here is a look at the rec deck detail. I can only get so close here, but you can see all the background there. You can see the columns are lit. But like I said, you do give up a little bit of visibility into that window where you have the gallery, you know, those columns that are there right up against the glass. But that's the way it should look from far away. You should be able to kind of look like this and see that little structure in there. So I'm really happy with that. I think we'll go with that, you guys. So we'll come back now and we'll get you set up and show you the floodlighting on the front of the bridge and how we're going to set that up. Alright everybody, well I've got this set up now. What I'm using here for this floodlight at the front is one of these little lighthouse LEDs. You guys have seen me use these before. These are really super bright. What I did is I clipped the little tip off right there. There's nothing in there. You don't have to worry about it. So all we're left with here is this little rectangle shaped LED. And I just kind of sanded the front end a little bit to diffuse it a little bit. And then set that up with a 1/4 watt 470 ohm resistor. You can see I've got that on there. Put a little shrink wrap on the negative side so we don't short that out. We're just pushing it right down in the hole here that already comes in the kit. And we're just going to kind of line it up just like this. Now I'm going to power this up. And you can see we've got a nice spot for it to sit right here. Our bridge can come down and sit right on the top of it, basically like this. Okay, so what I need to do now, you guys, is I need to turn down the lights here. I'm going to go overhead and turn the shop lights down. And then we'll take a look at this in some low light and make sure we get it lined up the way we want. Get some of our junk off the... When you got this light on here, you can see any imperfection in your saucer. So let's get this sitting down on here just right. Kind of get our bridge positioned where we want it to be. Come a little bit further forward. What I'm trying to do is eliminate this little shadow that we get right here in the front part of the bridge, but you can only take it so far because we can only go up so far forward with our bridge. That's the whole key to this thing. You want to make sure that the LED is not sticking out any farther than the bridge itself, or it will just look really funny. Okay, so we've got that. Slide my bridge back. I'm using there's a hole here at the rear part of the BC deck, and I'm making sure, basically when I was testing this earlier, that as long as I line up the rear wall of my bridge to where it just barely overlaps that hole, that's just about the right spot where I want this to be. So I'm a little bit sideways with my LED. So what I'm going to do is hold my finger down on top of the bridge here, making sure it's all nice and centered. Kind of like this. I'm just going to move my LED a little bit here so it's... I think I can go a little bit further forward too. Just like that. This is a little bit of fiddling around, you guys, but it's really worth it in the end. You get a really nice effect with this. Okay, make sure my bridge is still good. Right there. That's about as far forward as I want to go with the bridge, so just pushing this LED back in a little bit so it's flush. So I got to pay attention to my spacing here at the front window. Okay, something like that. All right, let's turn the light back down and see how we look. Okay, you can see we're getting a really nice V-shaped floodlight coming off the front now. That'll be more than plenty bright. The only downfall to this, you guys, is that when you look at the model from the front dead on, you're going to get a really blind, bright light in the front of you there, but there's nothing much you can really do about that if you want to light this up. You know, the option is the Raytheon method, but like I was saying earlier, the Raytheon on a large area just doesn't look really good to me. You can kind of see the texture of the plastic and all that, and I much prefer this method. Now what we're also going to do here is we're going to put another LED up inside in the middle of this thing to light up these other two windows you can see here. They're not getting enough light. And then that'll also cast light out the back where we have that airlock and the two little windows there in the back. But this is exactly where I want it to be, you guys. So I'm going to see if I can manage to do this. What my goal is here is I want to put just a little bit of CA glue on that, but I don't want it to run out the front. I'm going to have to kind of figure out how to do this here. Let me prop this up on a, so it's tilted for us. Okay, that'll work. I don't want to get any glue on my bridge either. I just want to let, I'm trying to glue just basically the LED down in place. So we've got our thin CA glue here. I just let a little bit of it drizzle in there. We got some on the outside, which I did not want, but that's okay. Just got rid of that real quick. Give that a second to set up. Then when I can come back, after I take the bridge back up, we'll come back and put a little bit more glue on that from the inside. I just want to tack it down in place here where I like it. And that'll do it. Okay, so that's glued in place now. Let me go ahead and turn the shop lights back up here. And we're looking pretty good here, you guys. Let me go ahead and get my thicker CA now, and we'll glue this here LED from the back side. Get that secured real nice. Just like that. Okay. So that worked out really good, you guys. Everything's going to look really nice with that. And we'll just kind of set our bridge back in place here and show you that again. I'll just have to make sure when I finally do glue down the bridge, I'll just get it all nice and centered and everything again. But we know our LED's in the right place, and that's the main thing that we wanted to achieve here. So that's looking really good. I might have to sand a little bit on the top of this LED too. It looks like it's stopping the bridge from going down completely flush, but it's really close, so we'll be able to do that. Okay, you guys, well, that's going to be a wrap for this one. We're going to come back in the next video. We're going to have our control board, and we will be installing that inside the saucer here for our navigation and strobe lights. And I've also got the board on the way for the other effects on the model. I'm making up my mind whether I'm going to put that board in the saucer or in the secondary hull, but that's the board that controls our all of our effects, like our torpedo launcher, our deflector dish, our impulse crystal, our engines, all those extra special effects. I've got a separate board that I'm using for the sequencing lights of the shuttle bay floor, the landing lights. That's already been installed, and I'll show you a little bit of work I've been doing on the hangar deck when we come back on the next video as well. I've got a lot of stuff going on the sides, guys. I've got the secondary hull I've started on and some other things, so a lot more to show you in the next video. Just want to get out a nice little video for you guys over the weekend here. And again, Merry Christmas, you guys. Oh, and a shout out to Carl out there who watches our channel. Carl, you'll know who you are. Thank you so much, Carl. Carl sent me some nice brand new wrapping wire here. I'll show it to you guys really quick. He sent me some red and some black. We had mentioned that we were out of this the last time, so thank you so much, Carl. Really appreciate that. I'll use that on the next build. I don't want to switch that now because it'll confuse me, but we're going to go ahead and keep going with what we've got. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you guys are warm and safe over the holidays. We'll see you probably the beginning of next week, and we'll get back to work on the refit. See you then, everybody. Take care, and happy modeling.